Ever crack open a textbook and think, who decided this was important? Or maybe you're knee deep in your kid's homework wondering, like, what kind of master plan is behind it all? Well, today we're diving deep into the surprisingly complex world of curriculum and instruction. It's more than just textbooks and lectures, my friend. Expert speaker want to lead us through this educational labyrinth a little.
Oh, absolutely. It's way more interesting than it seems at first glance, right? I mean, most people, they hear curriculum and just think, oh, the subjects you
Oh,
study.
it's like just a list.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But our sources this time suggest it's way more dynamic than that.
Okay, so it's not just the what, but also the HOW, and maybe a whole lot of WHY in there too?
You got it. One source even said, and this is a direct quote, a curriculum encompasses many more entities than a written plan. They used words like built, planned, designed, like they're really crafting this whole experience.
Crafting an experience. Now, I like that. Suddenly it's not dusty old textbooks anymore. So what's that look like in action?
Think of it like a spectrum, you know? On one side, you've got your really traditional knowledge-based approach, and then way over on the other side, it's super student-centered. And there's even some in between that focus on tackling, get this, social issues.
Whoa, hold up. Tackling social issues through the curriculum. That's a whole other level. So give us the rundown on these different approaches.
Okay, so on one end, you've got the essentialists.
Yeah.
Big on passing down those core subjects, the essentials, right?
Yeah.
Reading, writing, math, all the classics.
Yeah, gotta have that good foundation, right?
For sure. And their thinking is, these are the things every educated person needs to know, period.
Makes sense. But then how does the student-centered approach change things up?
So picture this. A classroom where the kids have a say in what they're learning, maybe even how the classroom's set up.
Yeah.
All about sparking that curiosity, letting them explore what interests them, you know.
Okay, now this is giving me some serious free-spirited learning treehouse vibes. I like it. What about that social justice angle you mentioned?
Ah, right. That's the Reconstructionist approach. And it's pretty radical. Imagine a classroom where kids are learning to really think critically about social problems and then using that knowledge to actually make a difference in the world.
Wow, that's like empowering future change makers.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
I'm into it. So out of these three, which one resonates with you the most? Or is it like a mix and match situation?
Honestly, there's no right answer. Every approach has its own strengths and weaknesses, right?
Mm-hmm.
But what I find fascinating is seeing how these different approaches actually play out in the real world, you know? But before we go too far down that rabbit hole, maybe we should loop back to instruction.
Right. We've been chatting about the what of learning, but what about the how? Is it as simple as like curriculum is the cake and instruction is the frosting?
Ooh, I like where your head's at. It's more nuanced than that, though. Think of it this way. Curriculum's like the blueprint, right? And then instruction is how that blueprint actually comes to life in the classroom.
So you could have like the most amazing cutting edge curriculum, but if the instruction isn't there, it's all pointless.
You hit the nail on the head. They're two sides of the same coin. You
Yeah.
know, both are essential for an effective learning experience.
Okay, that totally makes sense. But how do we like visualize this relationship? Because it sounds like more of a tango than two ships passing in the night.
Now you're getting it. It's
Yeah.
definitely a dance. And get this, our sources actually lay out 4 different models for how curriculum and instruction relate to each other. Dualistic, interlocking, concentric, and cyclical.
Okay, I am here for a good visual, so break it down for us. What's the dualistic model look like?
Picture this. 2 separate circles, one for curriculum, one for instruction, no overlap at all.
Yikes. Talk about a communication breakdown. That does not sound good for the learning experience.
And you're right, it often isn't. Unfortunately, that's often how it goes down in the real world. You know what I mean? Decisions about curriculum are happening over here, and what's going on in the classroom can feel totally disconnected.
Like they're speaking two completely different languages. All right, so then what about the interlocking model? Does that bridge the gap a little better?
Much better. Now you've got those 2 circles, but they're overlapping, right? So there's this shared space in the middle.
Okay, so now we're talking. So it's less about like separation and more about collaboration.
Yeah, exactly. They influence each other.
Yeah.
What happens in the classroom actually affects how the curriculum evolves, you know?
Gotcha. Okay, but hold on. We've got 2 more models in the ring. What was that next one?
Yeah.
Concentric.
That's the one. This was a little trippy, but picture one of those circles, right?
Mm-hmm.
but it's nestled right inside the other one.
Whoa, okay, so is it like one's a mini-me version of the other? Which one's the boss in this situation?
That's a great question. It kind of depends on who you ask, honestly. Some people say the curriculum is inside instruction. Some say it's the other way around.
Curriculumception.
Haha, exactly. But the point is, they're not just intertwined in this model. They're inseparable, you know? Like, one can't even function without the other.
Okay, now that's a whole other level of closeness for our pals curriculum and instruction. All right, bring on the final model, that cyclical model. This one sounds like it involves interpretive dance or something.
Haha, I love it. Okay, so this one's all about the feedback loop.
Yeah.
Imagine those two circles again, but they're connected by all these arrows going back and forth.
So it's like this constant dialogue. They're always learning and growing from each other.
Exactly. Curriculum impacts instruction, which then loops back around and impacts the curriculum again, and on and on. It never stops. And, you know, it's interesting because while all these models give us different ways of seeing the relationship, most experts actually agree on which ones they think are the most, well,
Accurate.
yeah, accurate.
So who wins the curriculum instruction popularity contest?
It's actually a tie. The interlocking and the cyclical models are the clear winners.
Yeah.
They just seem to really reflect how these two ideas work together out there in the real world.
So it's less about who has the upper hand and more about this constant give and take, this back and forth between what you teach and how you teach it.
I got it. And understanding that is so important for designing a really effective learning experience, you know?
That makes a lot of sense. Okay, so we've got these two big players, curriculum and instruction, and they're in this constant dance-off to make learning happen. But then in the source, it mentions curriculum as a whole field of study, like its own thing. But like, I always thought disciplines were, you know, like history or biology, not curriculum.
Yeah. It's kind of strange when you think about it like that. But it makes sense if you really break down what makes something a discipline.
Okay, I'm all ears. Hit me with those criteria for official discipline status.
Okay, so first, you need those big guiding principles, right? The ideas that give the whole field a framework. And curriculum studies definitely has that. I mean, the whole thing is about how people learn best, right? There's tons of research and theory behind it.
So instead of just like throwing random subjects at students, it's more about being intentional about what they're learning and why, right?
100%. And the second thing a discipline needs is its own set of special knowledge and skills. And curriculum studies has that in spades. Think assessment strategies, different learning styles, how to design instruction, all of that. It's a lot.
Okay, so this isn't just teachers, like, winging it. There are people out there who are experts in this stuff, and their whole job is designing effective learning.
Absolutely. And that brings us to the third thing. A discipline needs to be legit. You got to have both. The theorists, the ones coming up with the big ideas, and then you need the practitioners, ones actually putting those ideas into action out there in the world. And when it comes to curriculum, we've got both, which is cool.
So you're telling me there are people who just geek out about curriculum all day long. That's amazing. Where do I sign up?
Oh, they're out there. And they're called curriculum specialists. They're like the behind-the-scenes masterminds, making sure the learning experience is tip-top, you know?
Okay, now I'm really interested. Curriculum specialists.
Yeah.
It's like having a personal trainer, but for your brain. What do they actually do all day?
Well, they do a ton, but I think one of the most important things is they take all that theory, all that research, and turn it into something teachers can actually use in their classrooms.
So they're like the bridge between the big ideas and the, what do they call it? The rubber meets the road stuff.
Exactly. They're all about making sure the curriculum is engaging, exciting for students, but also that it actually, you know, works, that kids are actually learning.
It's like they're taking the blah, blah, blah of educational theory and turning it into aha moments.
Yes, I love that. And on top of all that, they're always evaluating.
Yeah.
Like, what's working, what's not? Is there a better way to do this? They're constantly tweaking and refining.
So it's not like they just create a curriculum and then just dust off their hands like, well, my job here is done.
Definitely not. It's ongoing. And they also play a big role in keeping things fresh. You know, they're the ones reading the latest research, figuring out what's new in the field, and then sharing all that with teachers.
Okay, so they're like curriculum DJs, always spinning the latest educational tracks.
That's a good one.
But seriously, it sounds like they're kind of the unsung heroes of education, right? I mean, they're working behind the scenes, but they're having this huge impact.
100%. They don't always get the spotlight, but they're the ones quietly shaping how future generations learn and grow. It's pretty amazing.
It really is. This whole deep dive has been so eye-opening. It's incredible how much goes into creating a good educational experience. I mean, I never really thought about it before.
Right. You just kind of assume it just happens.
Exactly, but there's so much intentionality behind it, or at least there should be.
For sure. When it's done right, it makes all the difference.
Absolutely. And speaking of doing it right, I think it's time to leave our listeners with a little something to ponder, a little food for thought as they go about their day, right?
I like it. Hit them with your best question.
All right, deep divers, here it is. Think back to your own education, whether it's, high school, college, whatever, or even your job now. Have you ever experienced that disconnect between what you were supposed to be learning and how it was actually taught? Like where the curriculum and instruction were totally mismatched?
Ooh, that's a good one.
Right. And how did that make you feel? Did you just kind of give up? Or did you find ways to bridge that gap yourself?
Such an important question.
It really highlights how crucial that harmony is. When curriculum and instruction are in sync, working together, that's when the real learning magic happens, wouldn't you say?
Couldn't agree more.
And on that note, a huge thank you to you, expert speaker, for walking us through all of this. I always learned so much from our chats.
Likewise. Always a pleasure to geek out about curriculum and instruction with you. You know I love it.
And to our amazing listeners, thanks for joining us on another deep dive into the world of education. Keep those brains firing, and we'll catch you next time on The Deep Dive.